John est l'animateur, c'est le guide, c'est l'organisateur, c'est le capitaine Philpot que je vous présente. Mais pour les fins de, de nos archives, je dois consigner les notes qui vous concernent. John est avocat de la défense au TPIR, où il a représenté 3 accusés, ainsi qu'à la Cour pénale internationale, où il a œuvré dans un dossier. Il est membre du Barreau du Québec depuis 28 ans. Il est avocat accrédité au TPIY et au Tribunal Spécial pour le Liban et témoin expert en droits humains. Félicitations pour tout le travail que vous faites.
I'm going to speak to you in English because the text which I'm preparing for the future book is in English, and then a little bit later I'll proceed to thanking people, and I'll do it in French. And with some of the speeches which have been made today and Phil's intervention, my intervention will be a little bit shorter than I had foreseen, and I'll try and jump around on the different topics. International criminal law is full of catchwords which justify it. The fight against impunity, the right to protect, the right to intervene in internal affairs of a country in the name of human rights. This moral high road is part of the consciousness of Canada, the US, and Europe. The only way to charge somebody is to demonize them. Recent examples. Laurent Gbagbo stole the elections in Ivory Coast. There was a process. There was a constitutional court. They had to intervene militarily to overthrow him. Mr. Gaddafi. I'm not going to go about all the wonderful things about him and Pan-Africanism. He imported Viagra to encourage systematic rape. That is the story which was coming out last in 2011. Genocide in Darfur, caused by Mr. al-Bashir. These, without making up these lies, they could not proceed either in the courts and, in many cases, militarily, because they are together. We've got a bit of knowledge as defense counsel. We've seen a lot. Many other people in the region, as Phil pointed out, have got as much knowledge as we have. They know a lot too. We are accused when we raise criticisms of being genocide apologists. We have a political agenda. How can you defend those people? Well, they can be defended, but how can you defend them? They're presumed guilty, and I saw some of our colleagues from the federal prosecution at the ICTR. The accused are presumed guilty. That you breathe it, you feel it at every minute. Now, the academic, we've had very good support from the University of Laval for a lot of our work, but in a lot of places, the academics are discussing international criminal law, and they analyze the jurisprudence, and they talk about the Akaesu case. And this man here is Jean-Paul Akaesu, one of the finest men that Rwanda would have known in 1994, an enemy of Habyarimana in passing. He had the bad luck of being arrested in Zambia in 1995, and he got brought forward. And he is the jurisprudence on sexual violence, on prior statements, is known throughout the world, and he's demonized, and I think that many people are would be proud to know him. I'm proud to know him. He's like a brother. I hope that university curricula will change. And that's one of the reasons we want to produce a book. Selective, no one's watching the time, eh? Selective prosecution. That has been the subject of a lot today. A racist, biased, colonialist court has no credibility. And that is why we have to question and not accept the judgments. The selective prosecution, we talked about Paul Kagame. Just last Saturday, he was in Boston, Rwandan Day in Boston, and some of our friends here were going to demonstrate and the U.S. refused entry. So here we have a war criminal, people wanting to go and protest against him, and the United States foreign policy prevents them from entering just for a day. They said, you can come back tomorrow, but not today. It's that Saturday. And at the same time, our friend who testified by video link is refused systematically visas to come to Canada. The ICTR, and we've been around for a while, has been rather unsuccessful in proving what it said it would prove. Unfortunately, all these fine men and one woman are in prison. They didn't prove that the military executed the meticulously planned genocide. Colonel Bagasora was cleared of all the conspiracy charges, and he was nailed on some superior responsibility, some minor events. And I had the pleasure with Peter Zadek to defend Prote Zigaran-Yurat, so the brother-in-law of the president, Habyarimana, and he was prosecuted by Stephen Rapp, who prosecuted Mr. Taylor, as being the mastermind of the genocide with the Akazu, and we had support from the opposition, and Mr. Zigaran-Yurat was cleared of that charge, and the Akazu theory disappeared. They still kept talking about it, and on the ICTR site there's a comic for kids, talks about the Akazu planning the genocide. So the discourse goes on, and when you have some success, doesn't really matter. The ICC is the new vehicle, which is treaty-based, but it is closely related to military intervention. The military intervention, the killing of Mr. Gaddafi, indirectly by the US because his convoy was beaten by NATO, and he was killed by local people. I mentioned the propaganda of mass rape, and in fact, this was a fabrication, and as Mr. Maximilian Forti's book will prove, the sexual abuse which did occur on black women was committed by the rebels. And they issued arrest warrants against Mr. Gaddafi and his son. Similarly, the ICC charges against Mr. Gbagbo followed a military intervention. So we can see that Mark asked questions about the connection between the ICC and the US, and it's a good question, and it's not always 100% clear. I'll get to another one in a minute. But there's always a connection, and the prosecutor, he's not independent. He follows orders. We won't find the orders. We won't see them all. But there's a pattern in the way they're elected